Hello all, in this particular tutorial, we will learn how to duplicate database on same server with different name. And we will be doing it using three different ways. So same database on same server with different name using three different ways. The three different ways that I'll be using is RMAN active duplication, RMAN backup based duplication, and RMAN backup and restore. Once this tutorial is done or completed, you will find that on the same server, there are four databases running, one the original database and three other databases which are the clone of that particular database. Now, I would like to give you a warning before you proceed. You should be careful while cloning or duplicating the database on the same server. There is a potential chance that you might end up in overwriting the data files, control files, or redo log member of the original database. If possible, avoid cloning on the same server. This is our scenario. On the server, which is DB1, there is a database called RMAN which we will duplicate using three different methods. We will duplicate or clone RMAN on same server, which is DB1, as RR21AD using RMAN active duplication, RR22BD using RMAN backup based duplication, RR23BR using RMAN backup and restore. Now, if you see the naming convention, the source database name is RR19D and destination AD stands for active duplication, BD stands for backup based duplication, BR stands for backup and restore. So based on the name, you will be able to identify which method is used to clone or duplicate this particular database. Now, RMAN active duplication does not need backup. However, the next two methods, the BD and BR, the backup based duplication and backup and restore, needs the backup of the source database. Now, before I proceed, I would like to also give you a overview on the concept of DBID. So what is DBID? DBID is internal unique identifier for a database. RMAN Recovery Manager distinguishes databases by DBID. RMAN Duplicate Database command changes the DBID automatically. If you want to know the DBID of your database, you can use select DBID from $database. Now, RMAN Backup and Restore method does not change DBID. You have to use NID utility to change the DBID post restore. However, the other two methods changes the DBID. So the duplication methods, the first and second method, active duplication and backup based duplication, will change the DBID. The backup and restore will not change the DBID. So, and why this is important? Because in the RMAN will distinguish the databases by DBID. So even if we have two different databases with different names, but the DBID is same, RMAN will consider those databases as same databases. So the DBID is the key internal unique identifier for a database, and the RMAN backup and restore does not change DBID. Now, let's understand about all the three procedures one by one. So what is RMAN active database duplication? Active database duplication does not require backups of the source database. It duplicates live source database by copying database files over the network. To perform active database duplication, a connection to target database is required. Active database duplication requires minimal setup and is simpler to perform. Oracle recommends that you use active database duplication in general unless network bandwidth between source and destination is a constraint. This method changes DBID. So active duplication is the method where you don't need the backup, and it actually duplicates the database by copying database files over the network. And because it copies the database files over the network, it needs the connection to target database, and it is very simple to perform and it needs minimal setup. This is the recommended method by Oracle. Whenever you want to duplicate the database, this is the recommended method by Oracle. Now, this method changes DBID. The second method is RMAN backup based duplication. In backup based duplication, pre-existing RMAN backups of source database are used to create the duplicate database. Combination of full and incremental backups can be used. RMAN determines which backups and archived log files to use based on until condition. Now, As per the Oracle, recommended method is not this particular method. The recommended method is active database duplication. But if you can't use active database duplication, then you can go for the backup based duplication. And in backup based duplication, you need to have the RMAN backups. Now, this particular method also changes DBID. Now, one of the things that is important is you have to mention the until condition. When you do the backup based duplication, you have to mention the until condition, and RMAN internally will determine which full backups to use, which incremental backups to use, and which archived log files to apply based on the until condition. The third method is RMAN backup and restore. In this method, we will take the backup of source database and use this backup to restore on the same server. Trick here is to use DB unique name parameter. We will set DB unique name parameter to some different name, and DB name will be set to original source database name. So when we do the restore using this, then the restored database will have the same DB name as the original database name. Only the unique name will change, and this does the trick of allowing us to restore on the same server. Now, this is the only method which does not change DBID. The rest two methods changes the DBID. This is the only method that does not change DBID. Now that we have seen all the three methods, let's do the comparison of all the three methods. So in active duplication, RMAN active duplication, do you need backup? No, you don't need a backup. Do you need the connection to the source? Yes. And since the connection to the source is required, a TNS entry is required. Does it changes DBID? Yes, it changes the DBID. And can you restore with a different DB name? Yes, you can restore with a different DB name. Now, RMAN backup based duplication is exactly same as active duplication. However, because it is a backup based duplication, it needs the backup, and since it is a backup based duplication, it does not need the connection to the source database. So the TNS entry is not required and the backup is yes. But rest of changes the DBID, yes. You can can you restore with a different name? Yes, you can restore with a different name. So the active duplication and backup based duplication are pretty similar because they do changes the DBID. They allow you to restore with a different DB name. However, in the active duplication, backup is not required. In the backup based duplication, backup is required, but no TNS entry is required. Now, RMAN backup and restore is totally different method. Does it require backup? Yes. Does it require TNS entry? No. Does it changes DBID? No. Can you restore with a different DB name? You can't restore with a different DB name. Now that we have seen the comparison, let's proceed with actual lab. So what I'll do, there are three parts. Part 0, which is there are four actually parts. The part 0 is on the source database, what we need to do on the source database. And then there is a part 1, part 2 and part 3, which will talk about how to restore. So what we will do, we will first do the activity on part 0 and then we will continue with part 1, part 2 and part 3. So what is part 0? Part 0 is the activities that we need to do on our source database. So what are the activities? We need to take the backup, we need to create the P file. So these activities we will be doing on our source database, which is Aura 19D. Now, what are on the source database? You need to create the P file. So if you don't have the P file, create the P file. If you already have the P file, you can skip this particular step. So we'll be creating the P file from SP file. Using this particular command, we'll be creating the P file. Now, there are various methods of taking the RMAN backup. If you already have the RMAN backup, this particular step is optional. This is not required. But if you don't have the backup and you want to know how to take the backup, these are some of the commands that you can use to take your backup. So set the environmental variable and then connect to the RMAN target slash, and you can say backup database plus archive log, which will take the backup of database along with archive log, or you can say backup incremental level 0 database plus archive log, which will take the incremental level 0 backup along with archive log, or you can take the backup of the database or backup incremental level 0 database followed by archive log all. The only difference between these two commands and this command is here you are taking the archive log along with the database backup. Here you are first taking the database level backup followed by the archive log all. Choice is yours. Again, these are some of the methods that you can take the backup. If you already have the backups, you don't need these particular backups. Now, one thing that I want to highlight, backup of source database is only required in RMAN backup based duplication and RMAN backup and restore method. It is this particular backup is not required in active database duplication. Now, these are the three parts. The first part is active database duplication. The second part is backup based duplication, and the third part is backup and restore. And as I told you that if you look at the name of the restored database or duplicate database, you can identify based on the name. You will be able to identify which method is used to duplicate that particular database. So AD is for active duplication, BD is for backup based duplication, and BR for backup and restore. Let's proceed with the part 1, RMAN active database duplication or R21AD. So let's proceed with how we will learn on how to duplicate your database using active database duplication. So what are the steps? On the source database, only one step: create P file. As I told you, that is backup of source database is not required, and this particular command changes the DB ID. So that is something that you need to understand. So on the source database, no need to take the backup, only create your P file. Now to duplicate this particular database, set TNS entry for source database, open database in no mount mode using P file, duplicate database using RMAN. So these are the only 3 steps. First, connect to the source database. Second, open database in no mount mode. Third, duplicate database using RMAN. Now, let's see how to set up the TNS entry to the source database. So go to your Oracle Home Network Admin. Under that, there will be a file called tnsnames.aura. If there is no file called tnsnames.aura, create a new file, and under that particular file, edit this entry, add aura19d. So this is the source database, aura19d, and then the host wherever that you are going to do the restore, same server you mentioned here, the port, this is the database port, and service name is the aura19d, which is your source database. So you'll create your TNS entry in tnsnames.aura under Oracle Home Network Admin. Now, the active duplication with a different name. To perform this, the trick that I'll be using is I'll be saying log file name convert. So I'll copy the int parameter file from the source database, and once I copy this, then I will modify one single parameter in that particular file, which is log file name convert, and I'll change that to aura19d to aura21ad. What does this particular parameter does is like wherever if the logs are in this location, they will get redirected to this location. Now, the trick here is if you have multiple destinations for the source database, multiple destinations for the log file, you will have to add all of those in the log file name convert, so that when it does the restore, it actually moves or redirects those redo logs to the new location. So if you have multiple paths on the source database, make sure you comma separate and add those into all. They set the environmental variable aura21ad, the name that we are going to duplicate. Start your database in the no mount mode using the P file. Startup no mount P file is equal to start your database in the no mount mode using this particular P file, and then connect to the RMAN. Here, the target is your source database. The target is your source database, the database which is running on the same server. Auxiliary is the clone or dummy instance that you are going to duplicate. Now, here if you see, I have said set new name for the database to this particular location, set new name for the temp file to this particular location. What does these 2 commands will do is like all the data files will be redirected to this location, all the temp file will get redirected to this location. Once you have done the set new name, you can use the duplicate database to command from active database no file name check. This particular command will connect to the source database. It will create all the data files into this location, the temp file in this location, and since we have used the log file name convert, it will create the redo logs into the path which contains this particular variable. Now that we have understood how it works, let's go ahead and do the part 1. So this is the theory. So what are the things that we will be doing? We will be creating the P file on the source database, and then we will be setting up the TNS entry, open database in no mount mode, and duplicate database using RMAN. These are the steps that we will be doing. So let's connect to this particular server, and on this particular server, if I run ps-ef grep pmon, you will see that there is a database called aura19d running, and if I do lsnr myctl status, you will see that this particular database is registered in our listener. So that's good. So we have a database called aura19d running, and we will be duplicating this particular database on the same server with 3 different methods. So at the end of this particular tutorial, we will have 4 databases running on this particular server. Now, another thing that I would like to highlight is let me just give me a minute. Now, since I will be duplicating the database thrice, I will be duplicating the database thrice. There will be four databases running. And if you do not have the memory or on your server, then while duplicating the second database, what you can do, you can shut down the database so that you have some resources available. But in my case, I have enough memory to hold four databases on the same server. So I should be good on that particular part. So let's begin. So what are the steps that we need to do on the source database? So on the source database, first, before doing anything, let me actually set the environmental variable and let me show it to you something. So let's do that. That's done. And let me actually connect to SQL Plus as sysdba. And before I do anything, let me actually show you. Let me run these four queries. So I'm selecting the member from $log file, the name from $data file, from $temp file, and $control file. Why am I selecting that particular information? Because we are going to duplicate on the same server. We want to know where our source database, redo logs, data file, temp file, and control file are present, because we need to redirect them, because we are doing it on the same server. We don't want to override them, so we need to make sure that we redirect them to a different location so that we don't mess up or spoil our source database. So that's why I'm going to run this particular query, and this particular information I'm going to capture. Now, before I run this particular query, I would like to also highlight one thing, that in my case, everything is under the same directory. So you can see the redo log is under the aura19d, the data file is also under the aura19d, the temp file is also under the aura19d. So everything is under the same same location, and also the control file. In your case, it might be under the different directories. So based on how you have set up your database, you might have to create multiple directories, and you have to set the set new name, etc. properly, so that you don't actually ending up overwriting the source database. Pretty important. So now that we have seen this, let's actually, first thing that we need to do is create p file from sp file. If you don't have that, let's go to that Oracle Home DBS and let's verify, do we have p file in our database? So as you can see, we got the Aura password file, we got the sp file, but we do not have the init parameter file. So let's go and connect as SQL Plus as sysdba and run create p file from sp file command, which will create the p file for us. So let's do that. Let's take this command and let's hit enter and let's exit. And then let's verify, do we have the p file now? So we had only 4 files and there was no init parameter file. Now let's run lslrt and you can see we got the init, we got 5 files, and now we got the 5th file, which is your init parameter file. So the first step is done. Now the backup of the source database, what I'll also do is I'll edit this etc aura tab entry, because we are going to duplicate the database thrice. I don't want to, waste my time, you waste your time. So I'll set up this entry in the beforehand so that we are ready. The etc aura tab entry is there for all the 3 databases. Now, why do I add this entry even before duplicating the database? Because this makes my life easier. I can set the environmental variable, which will set the Oracle Home, set the Oracle SID, Oracle Base, etc. So I do not have to set them manually. So let's add this entry all together before starting with our lab. So there will be one entry in this particular file, which is the source database. Aura19d is our original source database. I'm adding the entry for 3 different databases. 1, active duplication; B, the backup based duplication; B, R, backup and restore 21, 22, 23. So let's add that. And that's done. Let's save this particular file. Let's verify that those 4 entries are now present. The 1 original and the 3 new entries. That looks good. So now first thing that we need to do, we don't have to take any backup. For the first method that we'll be doing is duplicate with different name. And for this particular method, create p file, then set TNS entry, open database in nomad mode, do the duplicate. So these are the 3 things that we'll be doing. So the active duplication, as I mentioned, does not need the backup. So let's actually do one thing. Let's connect to the source database one more time. And let's say RMAN target / And this I'm doing just to prove that there is no backup of this particular database. So let's do the list backup and you will find that this particular database does not have any backup. That looks good. So now let's go to the Oracle Home DBS Network Admin. And this we need to do on the destination server, destination environment, but our destination home is same as your original database. So that's we, even if I do not have set the Aura envoy, that should have been fine, but let's do that. So let's go to the network admin and let's actually edit the tns names.aura file. So let's edit that particular file, and this particular file looks empty. So let's add this entry, and this particular entry, what we are saying here is we are creating a connection to our source database. So this is the source server where Aura 19D is running. This is the service name and this is the TNS entry name. So this particular entry we are creating pointing to the source database, the original database that we want to clone. Let's verify that that particular entry is working using TNS ping. So let's do that, and response is equal to 0 millisecond Aura 19D. That looks good. So the first part is done. Now what we will do, we will now we will set the, we have already done the etc Aura tab. I do not want to show you. I will just show you that there is an entry for in the etc Aura tab for 21. So let's do that, and you can see Aura 21 AD, that is an entry in etc Aura tab. Let's set that particular environmental variable, which we have already done. No harm in doing it once again. That looks good. Now in the Oracle Home DBS, what we will do, we have the files related to only Aura 19D. So if I do 19, you can see that we got Aura 19D here, password and SP file. We will not consider the SP file. We are going to play around init Aura file and Aura password file. So let's do something. Let's copy the Aura password file as Aura. So we will copy the Aura password file as Aura 21AD and init parameter file as init Aura 21AD in Oracle Home DBS location. Let's do that. That's done. And now if I do ls-l 21, we should see that we got init Aura file, we got the Aura password file. So that looks good. Now in the init Aura file, if this is just a copy, of 21 Aura 19D. So what we will do, wherever there is Aura 19D, we will blindly change it to Aura 21AD. So we will blindly change it to Aura 21AD in this particular file blindly. So let's do that. And that's done. Now we will add one variable. As I told you, the trick is here, log file name convert. What this particular parameter will do is, like, if all the redo logs which are present in this location, they will be redirected to this location. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to add this particular variable in our init parameter file which we created for the new database. So let's do that. Let's save that. Let's verify what have we got any entry with the original name. There should be only one entry, which is log file name convert. Okay, we have local listener. I can either get rid of that. So let me do something. Let me actually get rid of that particular variable, or probably, if you want to change it to, I'll just get rid of that. That's fine. So that's done. Let's save this. And now what I'll do, you can see the only parameter, let me actually show it to you. Only parameter which reflects the original database name is this log file name convert, which is important because if the redo logs are in this location, we are saying let them go to this location. And let's verify if all the entries are now pointing to Aura 21. So let's do that. And you can see all the entries are now pointing to Aura 21 AD. So that looks good. So we have set the init parameter file. So that looks good. Now what we are going to do, we are now going to, here I think I made a mistake. So now what we are going to do, we are going to create some directories. And what are the directories that I'll be creating? I'll be creating the directory for audit desk location. So audit desk location, I'll be creating this particular directory. I'll be creating the directory for your archive log destination. So this is the second directory that I'll be creating, and I'll be creating the directory for the control file location, which is this particular directory. So the three directories I'll be creating is audit desk location. So this is the directory that I'll be creating, the control file directory, this directory and the log arc directory, which is this particular directory. Now, in your case, you might have set the FRA, you might have set multiple log arc destination. You have to create those directories. You might have the control file in the first control file in different directory, second control file in different directory. You might have to create those directories. And as I told you, you might have the data files, the temp file in a different directories. You might want to create all of those directories. So based on how you have set up your set new name convert and how you have set the log file name convert, you might have to create multiple directories. But in my case, I have to create exactly 3 directories. And let me repeat, what are the 3 directories? One for the data file, which is the same directory for your data file, control file, temp file, etc. One for the log arc -1 and one for the audit dash. Let me create these 3 directories on my system. So let's do that. And that's done. Now we are at the step where we are ready to duplicate our database. We are at the step where we are ready to duplicate our database. To do that, what we will do is we will start our database as sysdba. So let's start our database as sysdba, and we will say startup no mount p file is equal to, and we will use the p file that we just created by copying and then modifying that parameters. So let's do that. And here all that I'm saying, startup no mount p file is equal to the location of p file, which is Oracle Home DBS, and the name of that particular p file. So let's hit enter. And if everything that we have done is good, then our instance will start in the no mount mode. Give it a few seconds and that looks good. So now at this moment, everything is done. Everything is done. We are going to do the active duplication. And the syntax for your RMAN would be RMAN target is equal to, this is your, in the target you will give the source database name. In the target you will give the source database name. Auxiliary is your Aura21AD, the duplicate or clone instance that we just created, the dummy instance. You can call it as a duplicate instance, clone instance, dummy instance, whatever you want to call. That is your Aura21AD. So this particular database or the source database from the target will get cloned in the auxiliary over the network without using the data, without using the backups. And here we are using the set new name clause so that all the data files will go to this location, and we are using the set new name for the temp file so that the temp file will go to this location, and we are using duplicate database to new name. So this is the new name from active database, no file name check. So let's do that. And when I run this particular command, you will find that the target points to Aura19D, which is completely open. Auxiliary points to the Aura21AD, which is in the no mount mode. So the target is Aura19D, auxiliary is Aura21AD, not mounted state. Let's verify. And you can see target is Aura19D, auxiliary is Aura21AD, not mounted state. That looks good. So if verify this 1 time, 2 time, make sure that you verify this, because when you run the duplicate command, it's going to take this particular database, it's going to copy this particular database to this particular database over the network. So let's run the duplicate command and let's do this. And since we are using the set new name clause, we have to make sure we put this in the run block. That is also important. So let's do this. Let's do the host clear and let's run this duplicate command. I'm going to hit enter. This particular duplicate database command is going to take some time. I'm going to pause the video, come back once this is almost about to be done. And I have started this particular command. So give it a few seconds for this particular command to complete. We are almost at the step where it has finished the restore and it started media recovery. So you can see finished restore. So it's done the restore, and we should be at any point in time, we should see that our duplicate database command is successful. Now, I would not connect to this particular duplicate database, which I will do at the end, because if you remember, we have to clone the another 2 databases. So alter clone database open reset logs database open finished duplicate db at this. So we have successfully completed our duplicate database. I'm not going to connect to this particular database. I'll do that at the end. So once we have completed all the 3 databases, I'll do it at the end. So let's do that. Now if I run ps-ef grep pmon, you should see that there are 2 databases which are running, which is the original database and the first database which we have cloned using the active duplication method. So that's done. Again, The verification will be done at the end, where I will show you which mode it is, etc., whether it is a read write, whether we are able to connect, etc., which I will do at the end. So that's done. The first part is done. So now we are going to move to the second part, where we will do the backup based duplication. Now, in backup based duplication, we will duplicate the database with name aura22bd. BD stands for backup based duplication. So backup based duplication, B and D. And here, what we need to do, we need to create the P file, which we have already done in the first part. So I'm not going to create it once again. But the RMAN backup, we need to take the RMAN backup. Remember, in the first lab, we did not take the RMAN backup. Here, we need the RMAN backup. Now, if possible, I'll use the same RMAN backup to do the duplicate in the second part as well, because that is the third part where we will be duplicating with a backup and restore method. So if possible, I'll use the same backup. If not, I will take a fresh backup. Now, this is where I'll be taking the RMAN backup. Once the RMAN backup has been taken, we will open database in no mount mode. We don't need to connect to the source database because this is backup based duplication. And then finally, once the database is open in no mount mode, we will duplicate database using RMAN. So here, in this particular method, backup of source database is required. Duplicate command changes the DB ID of the database. So let's see. So here also, we will create an init parameter file, which is the copy of your source init parameter file, and then we will add this particular parameter log file name convert, which will redirect all the data logs from this location to this location. Then we will set the environmental variable. We will start your instance in the no mount using this init parameter file. Once our instance is started in the no mount mode, we will run this particular duplicate command. Here we will connect to the auxiliary. We will only connect to the auxiliary. We will set the new name for the database to this location, set new name for temp file to this location. What these two commands will do is, like, it will make sure that all the data files will get redirected to this location. The temp file will get redirected to this location, and then we will run the duplicate database to aura22bd backup location. So here, if you remember, we have to specify the backup location, the location where we have stored the backups. No file name check until time we have to do, and this until time from where we are getting, I will show you when we are doing the actual lab. So this is until time is pretty important, because this until time determines what backups the RMAN will use to duplicate this database, what full backups it will use, which incremental backups it will use, what kind of which archive redo log files it will apply. All of that is determined by this until time clause. So if you notice this particular syntax from the active duplication, there are two different things here. One is the backup location. So we'll specify the backup location. Second, we will specify the until time clause. Now that we have seen this, let's go ahead and connect to our lab. At this moment, as I had told you, that there are two databases running. We are going to duplicate aura19d as aura22bd. So at the end of the lab, there will be three databases running. And this particular method, the method that we are using is backup based duplication. So what are the steps? Create P file, which we have already done. Take RMAN backup. So let's connect to the source database once again. And this particular RMAN backup, if possible, we'll use for the next two labs. So let's connect to the source database once again. Aura19d. That's done. Let's verify if I honestly remember that we don't have the backup of this particular database. So, but let's verify we have the backup of this particular database. I don't think so. We should have the backup, but let's verify for our sake. So list backup. And you can see there is no backup. Now, before I take the backup, I would like to also show you one more thing for this particular database, and that is your show all parameter. And what I want to show you in this particular, let me do this and let's do show all. So here I want to show you something. If you notice here, I have configured this configure control file auto backup on. What does this particular parameter does is that every time you take the backup, level 0 backup, level 1 backup, archive log backup, incremental backup, full backup, any kind of backup, automatically the control file which will be also backed up. This is the standard practice. This is a good practice. You should always turn it on in your environment. Now, if you notice something else also, I have already defined, this is this is recommended, this is recommended, you should follow this, but this is not something that this is up to you. So here what I've said, I've configured a default channel device type disk format. What it does is, like, whenever I try to take the backup will always go to this location. So because I have already defined this, I don't have to configure the channel while taking the backup, because the backup will automatically go to this location. Now this is not something that is mandatory, this is optional. I have done this for ease of my labs. However, this is something that is good practice, you should always follow it. Now that we have seen this, let's go ahead and let's take the backup. Now before I take the backup, let me actually do the list backup once again, so that we know that there is no backup. So let's take the list backup. And the way I'll be taking the backup is, I'll be taking backup incremental level 0 backup followed by archive log all backup. So let's take the incremental level 0 backup first, and followed by archive log backup. So that backup has started. Give it a few seconds for the backup to complete. And the backup has been completed. Let's take the archive log backup, and that got completed. Now, if you remember here, when I ran the list backup command, I got the message specification does not match backup and the repository. Let's run the list backup command once again, and this time we get the backups information. So you can see we got the level 0 incremental backup, and we got the archive log backup, and we got the control files and SP file added. So you can see control file included. Now that's done. Let's go to that particular backup location. Let's go to that particular backup location and verify that we do we have the backup in place. So let's go to that particular location and let's do ls minus lrt. Now here there is a snapshot control file. I'm not interested in it because, and that will confuse me. It will confuse you. So let's do that. So now if I do ls minus l, you will be able to see that we have got two control file backups, and we got the level 0 backup, and we got level 0 incremental backup, and we got the archive log backup. Now the two control file, why we have got two control files? So when we took the level 0 backup, we got the control file backup, and when we took the archive log backup, we got the control file backup. This means that every time we take the backup, automatically along with that particular backup, there will be a level 0 backup, and there will be control file auto backup. And basically what I mean is, like, every time we take backup, there will be control file auto backup. So that's what I wanted to say. Now, if you really want to see this, if I run ls minus rd, you will see that this is the level 0 backup, this is the control file backup associated with this level 0 backup, this is the archive log backup, this is the control file backup associated with this archive log backup. That's good. So the backup part is done. Now, what we are going to do is we are now going to go for RMAN backup based duplication. And first thing that we need to do is etc aura tab. Now remember, we have already created this particular entry, so I'm not going to waste my time, but just let me show you that particular entry exists in our aura 22 bd. So let's set that particular environmental variable aura 22 bd, and that looks good. Now what we are going to do is we are going to now go back to our Oracle home DBS location, and we are going to copy here. If I do ls minus l grep for 22, you will find that we have this control file. Let me actually go there and let me clear whatever is there. Let's get rid of this things. Yeah, that's good. I want to keep the things clear. So now let me run this, and you can see we don't have anything in Oracle home DBS. Now let's copy the aura password file as aura password 22. Now this is not mandatory. We don't need the password file sorry. Okay, that's not good. Give me a minute. Yeah. So this is not mandatory. So the password file is not mandatory. However, I copy it. It's not mandatory. It's not required for you. But if you don't have the password file, you will not be able to connect via remote using the sys. So that's why I'm going to create this particular file, and the init parameter file. This is important. So let's copy both of these particular files. Let me get rid of this. So let me copy the password file and init parameter file as the 22d. So that's done. Now if I do ls minus l grep 22, we got the init parameter file, we got the password file. Now I'm going to do some modification into this particular file. So what are the modifications that I'm going to do in that particular password file? The init parameter file is wherever there is this aura 19d, I'm going to change it to aura 22 bd blindly. So I'm going to do that. So let's take that and Let's do that change. So that's done. And look and everything. And I'll get rid of this local listener. So that's done. And what I'll also do is I will add a parameter called log file name convert, which will say that if the redo logs are there in this location, redirect them to this location. Let's take that and put it here. And that's done. Now let's verify this particular file. If we have got in this particular file, if we have got anything with aura19d, there will be only one parameter, which is your log file name convert. That looks good. And let's verify if all the parameters are reflected as aura22bd, and that looks good. So all the parameters are reflected as aura22bd. That looks good. Now what we are going to do, we are going to create three directories. Now the three directories, one for the data file, which is the same for control file, redo log, temp file, etc. One for archive log dash and one for the audit. Now you will ask me from where I'll get this information. This particular information is present in your init parameter file. So here is the location for your audit file dash. So create this particular directory. In my case, the control files control01 and control02 is in the same directory, but in your case, they might be in a different directory. So to create those directories, and here I have specified the log arc dash one, which is here. So create this directory. So exactly three directories, data, one for the data file, one for the archive log dash, one for the audit dash, and the data file will hold the temp file, redo log, etc., control file, etc. Now, based on your environment, you might have to create multiple directories, but in my case, I have to create only three directories. So let's go ahead and create those three directories. Let's do that. That's done. Now, what we are going to do, we are going to remember one thing, that in this particular method, here we have to give the until time clause. We have to give this until time clause. And I told you that how to get this until time, we will see during the lab. So what I'll do, I will run a very simple query. I'll connect to the source database, the database for which we have taken the backup. Let me open another session. Let's not do this in the same session. So let me open another session. Let me set the environmental variable to the source database, the original database, the production database that we are cloning. Let me run SQL plus, let me connect to as SQL plus SysDB. And what I'll do is I will run a very simple query, and I'll show it to you the query. It is basically file type, backup set completion time, file name from $backup files, ordered by backup set key and primary key. So P key, piece key. So if you take this particular query, run this particular query, and what I'll also do so that the output fits in the screen, and I'll set the analysis date format, and this particular format is the one which you will use here. Whatever format I have specified here, the same format I have specified here. So let's set this particular analysis date format. That's done. Let's set this line size. Let's set this so that output fits properly on the screen. That's done. And let me actually do host clear. And what I'll do, I will run this particular query. And this particular query gives us the, if you see, there is a control file backup, which we took when we took the level 0 backup. There is another control file backup, which we took when we took the archive log backup. So what I'll do, I will take this particular backup. I'll take this particular control file backup, but I'll just add probably a 1 second or 2 seconds to that. So I'll say 2025 0224 20043 or something like that. So let's do that. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to paste it here. And instead of exactly at the same, I'll add maybe a second, 43 or probably 2 seconds to that. And now we are ready to duplicate our database. Now, before I duplicate, let me actually go back, and I think after creating the directories, I did not start our instance. So let's do that. So this particular is the dummy instance. Let's take this aura22bd. And we will start that. So if I do ps-ef grep pmon, you can see that we have only the two databases. Now when I start the third database, so we'll say SQL plus as sysdba, and we will say startup no mount p file is equal to, and we will use the init22bd startup, and we are starting the database in the no mount mode. So let's say startup no mount p file is equal to the location Oracle home dbs init aura22bd dot aura. And because we have done everything, if everything is good, then we should start our instance in the no mount mode. Give it a few seconds. Once the instance has started in the no mount mode, let's verify, and that's done. Let's verify if really we got the instance. So we had two instances. Now if I run this, we got the third instance, which is started in the no mount mode. We are at the step where we are ready to duplicate the database, and we are going to say RMAN auxiliary. Auxiliary is nothing but the aura22bd, which we started in the no mount mode. So you can see auxiliary is aura22bd, which we started in the not mounted mode. The command that we are going to run here is this particular command, and I'll show it to you. This particular command: set new name for the database, set new name for the temp file. This particular command will make sure that the data files will go to this location, temp file will go to this location, duplicate database to new name, backup location. So we are going to specify where we kept the backup of the source database, no file name check, until time, to date, which we got from here. We took the control file backup, we took this time, we added 2 seconds to that. So this is the control file, and let's take this particular command and let's run this. And now since we are going to use the set new name clause, we need to make sure that we do this in the run block. So let's take this command and let's say host clear, sorry, I think, yeah, that's fine. So let's take this, and that's done, and let's paste this output. And now I have not pressed enter, I'm going to press the enter. Now this particular command takes some time. I'm going to pause the video, come back once this is about to be done. So let's hit enter. That's done. It has started duplicating. Again, as I mentioned, this particular command will take some time. I'm going to pause the video, come back once this is about to be done. So it's starting media recovery, finished recover at. So we should be, it's not done, but it should be done in a few seconds from now. So give it a few seconds. Let's see if we are able to get this restore duplicate database successfully. Oracle instance started, alter data clone database open, reset logs mode. So that looks good. Database open, finished duplicate DB. So that is done. So we have now done the second duplicate. Now again, I'm not going to connect to this particular database. I'm just going to show you that we now have got the aura19d, which is the original database, the first clone, which is backup active duplication method, the second clone, which is backup based duplication, running on the same server. Now, while the second database, again, I'll mention, I will not connect to this particular database. This particular database will be up and running, and I will proceed with the third part. Once the third part is done, I will connect to all of these 4 databases and show you how it looks like, whether they are in the read-write mode. So if you want to skip to the end and check how this database looks like, you can. But if you want to see the third part where we will duplicate the aura19d on the same server with a different name using third method, which is backup and restore. So let's proceed with the third method where we are going to duplicate the database using backup and restore. So in this particular method, we will duplicate database with name aura23br stands for backup and restore, and this is the part 3. So in this particular method, we will create the p file, we'll take the RMAN backup. Now both of the steps have been done for the previous labs, where we create p file we created in the first lab, which we used for the second lab as well. Take RMAN backup. This we did in the previous lab where we did the backup based duplication. So I'll try to use the same backup. I'll not take the fresh backup. Now, the open database in no mount mode using p file. So we will open database, which p file, this particular p file, we will modify that particular file. Then we will restore the control file. Then we will open database in mount mode. Once we restore the control file, we'll open database in mount mode. We'll restore the database. We'll recover the database. We'll open database in reset logs mode. Since we are going to duplicate the database on the same name, we will set the DB unique name to some different name. So this is very important. We'll set the DB unique name to some different name, and the DB name will be set to original source database name. So remember this particular point, the DB name will match to original database name. DB unique name will be changed. In this particular method, once we duplicate this particular method or we do the restore, the DB ID remains the same. So the DB ID will be exactly same as your source database. Now let's see what are the steps. So we'll set this environmental variable. We'll create this init parameter file. This particular init parameter file, the DB name will point, although we are saying 23BR, the DB name will be as the original database, and the unique name will point to this particular database. Then we will start our instance in the no mount using the p file, the new p file that we created. Once the instance has started in the no mount mode, first step we'll do is we'll restore the control file from the backup. Then we will mount the database. Then we will restore the database, switch data file all, switch temp file all. But before restoring, we'll do the set new name for the database so that all the data files will go to this location. Set new name for the temp file so that temp file will go to this location. Now, remember one thing, before recovering the database, you have to rename the redo log files, because if you see here, we have not mentioned the redo log conversion. So we have to, what we have to do before we recover the database, we have to recover the files. If you don't do this, you might end up overwriting the redo log files of your original database, or probably you may not be able to recover the database. Anything is possible. Restore you can do, but before recovering, remember to rename the redo log files to a different location. Now, once you rename those redo log files, then you recover the database and open the database in reset logs mode. So this is the trick that we'll be using. So this is the end of part 3, and let's do the restore on the same server using backup and restore using on the same server with the third method. Let's proceed. So what are the steps that we need to do? As I mentioned, we need to create the P file, take RMAN backup, which we have done. So we will directly proceed with the restore steps. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to set the environmental variable. So that we have already done. Cat etc order tab. So we have not set the environmental variable, but we have created an entry in etc order tab. So let's verify that and grep for 23, and you see we have got aura23br. br stands for backup and restore. So that looks good. Now what we are going to do, we are now going to go back to the Oracle Home DBS. Before that, let me set the environmental variable. You can set it to the source, server, or destination, because you're doing this in the same home. Everything is in the same home, so we can set the environmental variable to the destination server. So that's done. And if I do here ls-l grep for 23, you will find that we have this control file. Let me get rid of this. Let me see if there are any snapshot files, etc. Yes, that is a snapshot file. I'll get rid of that as well. So I want to keep it clean. So now if I do this and search for 23, we can see that we don't have anything over here. So let's see under the Oracle Home DBS location if we have any files with Aura 23, and looks like we don't have any files in that particular directory. So now what we are going to do, we are going to, in the Oracle Home DBS location, we are going to copy the init Aura file. Again, the password file is not mandatory, but we'll copy that so that we don't have to recreate the password file. And we will also, the password file will copy so that we don't have to recreate an init parameter file. We definitely need it because we are going to modify that particular parameter file. So let's do that. And that's done. And now if I take a look, do I have any files with Aura 23, and we have the init parameter file and the password file. Now I'm going to modify this init parameter file. So this init parameter file I'm going to modify, and what I'm going to do in that particular file. So let me open that particular file. And wherever there is Aura 19D, I'm going to change it to Aura 23BR. BR stands for backup and recovery. That's what I'm going to do. So let's do that. And that's done. I'm going to get rid of this local listener. So that's done as well. Now, as I told you, if you remember, now let me actually save this particular file. And if I check for this particular file, what's there with the original DB name, Aura 19D, that will not be anything in that particular file. You can see I'm not getting any output. Now what I'm going to do, and this is the trick that I'm going to do, is I'm going to edit this particular file, and I'm going to change this DB name to original database name. So this will point to original database name. So that's what we are going to do. And I'm going to do one more change, and that is I'm going to add a DB unique name parameter, and that one will reflect to the Aura 23BR. So let me do that. And that's done. Now let me save this and let me show you what I have done. So if I take a look at init23br and look for Aura 19D, then you can see the DB name in this particular P file, the DB name is set to the original database name. And if I give you what is set with 23, what is set with unique name, that would be your Aura 23BR, and what set with the Aura 23, then every other parameter will be Aura 23BR. So let me repeat, the DB name is set to the original name. the unique name, just give me a unique name has been set to 23BR, and rest of the all the parameter are also set to 23BR. So that looks good. Now what we are going to do, we are going to create three directories. And what are those three directories? Audit file dest, the control file destination, which is the same for both the control 1 and control 2, and this is the same location where all my data files will go, and also the log arc destination, which is this particular. Like again, in your environment you might have to create multiple directories based on how you have set up the database. So you might have to create different directory for the control 01 and control 02 if you have set like that way, and if you have set multiple FRA, you have set log arc destination 2, etc., you have to create those directories. So based on how you have set up your database, you might have to create multiple directories, but in my case I have to create exactly three directories. So one for the data file, which is the same directory for control file, temp file, etc., one for arc log, and one for the audit desk. Let me do that. Let me create that particular directories, and that's done. Now we are at the step where we are going to start our database in the no mount mode using the p file. So let's go as SQL plus SSDBA, and what we will do, we will say startup no mount p file is equal to the location of p file and the name of p files. Let's take this particular command and hit here, and you can see startup no mount p file is equal to the location of your p file, the name of your p file. And let's give it a few minutes for this particular instance to start in the no mount mode. So that's done. At this moment we have done everything, and we should be ready to restore our database using the backup and restore method. Remember, we have already taken the backup. I'm not going to show it to you. So the backup is already present. So what we are going to do, we are first going to restore the control file. Now, to restore the control file, let me go to that particular location and let's take a look at what's our name of the control file. So I'll open another session instead of clearing that. So let's go to that particular location, and here if I do ls minus lrt, you will see that we got we got the level 0 backup control file, the archive log backup control file. I'll take the latest control file, so I'll take the latest control file here. So that's what I'm going to take. And first thing, the steps that we will follow, and I'll show you the steps that we will follow. Restore open database in no mount mode, which we have just now did. Restore control file, open database in mount mode, restore database, recover database, open database in reset logs mode. These are the things that we are going to do now one by one. So let me close this and let me go to the original session. So I connected to the target database RMAN. It's in the not mounted state. Let's restore the control file first. Let's do that. Restore control file from the location where the control file is backup stored and auto control backup file. The restore control file has been done. So we have successfully restored the control file, and now it's time to start our database in the no mount mode. Before I do that, let me clear the screen. That's done. And now I'll say alter database mount. Let's give it a few minutes for the database to convert to mount mode. And that looks good. Now what we are going to do, this is the final command. We are not going to recover the database. Remember, I told you, if you remember, I told you we are going to just restore the database. And after restore, we are going to rename the redo logs. That is important. So the command that I'm going to run here is, this is the command. Let me explain this particular command. So I'm going to set the new name for the database, set the new name for the temp file. I'm going to restore the database. I'm going to switch the data file, switch the temp file. And since I'm going to do the set new name clause and switching, I'm going to put all of this in the run block. So let me take this command and let me do host clear one more time. So host clear, and let me enter this command. I've just pasted the command. I've not entered the command. So let me repeat the command for you. Set new name for the database. So all the data files will go to this location. Set new name for the temp file. The temp file will go to this location. We are restoring the database, switching the data file, switching the temp file. So let's hit enter. So the restore command has started. So give it a few seconds for the restore command to complete. So the restore command, what it does, it reads the data files and then it restores that particular finished restore, and then it switches the data files to the new location that we have set. So that switch is done. So that's done. The restore part is done. Now what we are going to do, the next part is we are going to rename our data files. We are going to rename our data file, sorry, redo log file. That is important. We have just done the restore. Let me explain that we have not done the recover. We have just done the restore. So before actually recovering the database, what we are going to do, we are going to rename all the redo logs to the new location. So that's what I'm going to do. So let me rename the first redo log file. That's done. Let me rename the second redo log file. That's done. And let me rename the third redo log file. That's done. Now we are at the step where we are ready to recover our database. So let's say recover database. Give it a few minutes. It's looking for unknown archive log. I'm going to ignore that particular error. Alter database, open reset logs. So that is the final command. So give it a few seconds and that's done. At this moment, all our three activities are done. So if I run ps minus ef, let me actually type it instead of searching for that particular command. Ps minus ef grep pmon, you will see that we got the original database called aura19d, the first clone 21 active duplication, second clone backup based duplication, third clone backup and restored method. So on the same server we got four databases running. Now if I remember, I told you that I will not connect to any of these databases and I will verify everything at the end. Everything will be verified at the end. If you want to stick around, you can stick around. If you want to leave the video, that's your choice because our main lab is completely done. But if you want to stick around and verify these databases, understand the DBID concept, then just hang on. So let me disconnect from all these sessions. And what I'll do is I will open four different sessions. First, second, third, fourth. So I got open four putty sessions. So now let me maximize all of these four sessions. That's done. And let me actually clear all the four sessions. So let me say clear, 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 and clear. So that's done. Now what we are going to do, in the first session, I'll set to original database name, which is Aura19D. In the second database, we will set it to Aura 21 AD active based duplication. So that's done. In the third session, we'll set it to Aura 22 backup based duplication. That's done. And in the fourth session, we'll set it to backup and restore 23 BR. That's done. Now let's connect to each and every database as SQL plus SSDBA. So that's first database, second database, third database, and fourth database. And let me run this pretty simple query. This is nothing fancy here. So all that I'm doing here is I'm selecting the instance name, host name, name of the database, unique name, DB status, and open mode. And I'm using $V instance and $V database. So let me run this query on all the four databases. So and before doing that, let me actually, if you want to shut down and start up the database one time, just for safety, let me actually do one thing. Let me just shut down and start up the database so that, if we have, it will actually, this is not mandatory, but why am I doing this is because if you by mistake replace the redo log or data file or control file while doing the restore, then when you do the clean shutdown and startup, that time you will identify those problems. So to make sure that none of the database has been overwritten, the only when you shut down and start up, you will identify those problems. So let's actually shut down and start up all the four databases which I have initiated that particular command. And again, this is not a mandatory step. This particular step is only to make sure or check that you have not overwritten any of your data files, etc, etc. So now let me do one thing. Let me actually, now that we have started, let me actually say host clear, and let me take all of this and let me run this query on all four databases. So let's do that here. That's done. Let's do it here. That's done. Let's do it here. That's done. And let's do it here. That's done. Now let me capture this output in a notepad file one by one. So let me take this here. So this is your original database. This is your first clone. This is your second clone. And this is your third clone. Now, let's go to that comparison sheet which we talked about. And here, as I mentioned, the active duplication and backup based duplication will change DBID. Backup and restore will not change DBID. And the active duplication and backup based duplication will allow you to restore with a different name. The backup and restore, you cannot restore with a different name. So let's verify that. And here you can see we got Aura19D, which is original database. If you see the DB ID of the original database and the backup and restore, the DB ID remains the same. So you can't change the DB ID using the backup and restore. Now, if you want to change the DB ID, that is possible, but you have to use the NID utility. So you have to use NID utility to change it manually post restore. In case of this is the active duplication, AD, active duplication, backup based duplication, and you can see the DB ID got changed automatically. We did not change the DB ID. So when we did the duplicate command, automatically the DB ID got changed. All of the databases are in the read write, open read write. So that looks good, which means that these databases are ready to connect. Now, if you take a look at the database name for the original database and the backup and restore, again the database name is also same. However, the in case of backup based duplication, active duplication and backup based duplication, we were able to restore the database with a different database name. So this particular method allows us the backup active duplication and backup based duplication allows us to restore with a different DB name. You can see we were able to restore with a different name in case of both, and you can see that result here. So the database name, when we did the active duplication, we were able to do the duplication with a different name, and even with the backup based duplication. However, in the backup and restore, we can't duplicate with the different name. The trick that we used here is the unique name. The unique name allowed us to have all the 4 databases running on the same system. So now we saw that all the databases we have shut down, started, all the databases are in open read write mode. That looks good. Now the final check that we will do, and that particular final check is about checking whether any of the data files, where are our data files, control files, etc. So let's do that. Let's take this, let's run this, and you can see our original database is in DBD Aura data, Aura19D, data files is here, the ready logs are here, the data files are here, the temp file is here, and the control file is here. Now let's take a look at this. So for the active duplication, you can see everything is under the new directory. For the backup based duplication, everything is under the new directory. And for the backup and restore, everything is under the different directory. You can see here in front of your eyes. So we have based on these queries, looks like we have successfully restored all the 3 databases on the same server without overwriting any of the original data files, and all of the databases are open read write mode. So that looks good. I hope this particular verification is enough and I don't have to do any more verification. So in this particular tutorial, we learned how to duplicate the database on same server with different name using 3 different ways. It's your choice of what method you want to learn, you want to use. If you ever have to duplicate the database on the same server, it's your choice of which method to use. You can use any of these 3 methods based on how confident you are or how efficient these 3 methods are. That's your choice. But remember, before I end this particular tutorial, you should be careful while cloning or duplicating the database on the same server. There is this potential chance that you might end up overwriting the data file, control file, or redo log members of the original database. If possible, avoid cloning on the same server. Again, you can do it. You need to be careful of while executing each and every step. So with that, I would like to say thank you. If you do like the videos that I'm uploading on my channel, if you do like the content that I'm uploading on my channel, do hit the like button, do hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching. See you in next tutorial. Till then, bye bye, and I hope you have enjoyed this particular video. Thank you and see you. Till then, bye bye. Have fun.